Why are you dying inside?
The budget just fucked everything up. So like, it's like a mad dash. It's like you got 6 weeks to
Well,
really pass crazy amount of bills, and like it's just a lot.
I've also declared war on potholes, so here's the first shot across the bow.
Well, as you know, with Planet Albany, there's always something that makes the planet turn.
And it's this amazing view of D.C., and Eddie Vedder comes out. And he goes, "You have a cigarette?" And I've never smoked in my life, but if I had, I wish that was the moment.
And this strategy takes us from potholes to knotholes.
I would like to say it was a pleasure, Mr. Kim. But I'm on the road.
I'm David Lombardo, and this is Dispatches from Planet Albany, a WCNY podcast about power and politics in New York. And helping us navigate the post-budget malaise is Shontell Smith, a partner with Tusk Strategies, where she is head of their New York practice. Shontell, how are you feeling in the wake of the budget getting wrapped up last week?
I am surviving, not thriving.
It felt like the budget kind of went out with a whimper.
Whimper.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you would like go home and you would turn like, I don't know if you all have cable. Well, you all are young kids, so you probably streaming
I'm a cord
services.
cutter. Yep.
But I have cable. But not like cable, but like a streaming cable. Nevertheless, I would watch the Senate and the Assembly in session. And it'd be one of those things like if it was a budget bill, they'd start at 11 and they would go to like 8 a.m. the next day. At least Assembly. Mm-hmm. And the Senate would go to like midnight 1. So I remember the bills were introduced. I blinked. The Speaker was out before the Senate, I think.
Assembly finished before the Senate. I've never seen that in my time here.
Never in my life. It was just like, I was in there last week because
Gotta get paid.
I got a bill successfully passed in the Assembly onto the Senate. But like they were debating like fridges. But then the budget was just like, they ain't even debated. So I don't know if they were just so sick and tired of being sick and tired from the budget process, or they just wanted their money, because legislators don't get paid during this period. But I was shocked at how quickly like it just all went through.
Speaking of lawmakers getting paid with the late budget, did you see on social media the pictures?
Oh, that's so embarrassing. So embarrassing. It was so pedestrian embarrassing. And if I was a member, I'd be actually kind of offended. I don't know who posted it, but it was a post of like the Assembly members waiting in line for their check.
Vaughn Golden, New York Post. It was great. I loved it.
Well, New York Post, shame on you.
Why?
Because it's not. Oh, sorry if you guys hear my dog snoring in the back. I'm sorry. He's sunbathing. But like, it was just embarrassing. Like, yeah, I'm getting my check. I deserve my check. I just voted for a bill. And let's be clear, the budget wasn't late because of me. The budget was late because the executive decided they weren't doing anything unless they got all 5 of their demands. So like, I just thought it was a little, we do not give these electeds enough grace. And I, even myself, don't give electeds enough grace.
But maybe that explains why they rushed through the debate, because they're like, a check is waiting for me.
I don't think they're that motivated by a check.
Okay.
First, I don't think it was like, oh, a check's waiting for me, because the check's gonna be there regardless. Like, no matter what, it still needs to clear. It's not like they're gonna put the check in their account and automatically it's there. It still needs time to clear. So, I heard rumors. I don't know if this is true, so I don't want to like say it, but like I think, at least on the Assembly side, I think like there was a handshake agreement about the debate and how long it was gonna be and stuff like that. I think like the Speaker and the Minority Leader had a conversation about it. So they were like less agitated, the Republicans in the Assembly side. In the Senate, they don't debate that long. Like,
No.
They probably like did their grand state. Like, Ort probably was like, a lot of spending in this budget and, it's late. And, he probably said, the things didn't go far enough. But they're not going to like, the Senate was never one to like debate for hours.
Well, let's talk then about debate on that note. And one of the most notable floor remarks this budget process came from State Senator James Skoufis, who had a mini meltdown / tirade on the Senate floor, complaining about the process, complaining about the governor, who he described as an autocrat. At one point, a Senate Republican turns to the Democrats and says, "This is my favorite part of the budget every year." And it seems like there is some sort of venting that needs to go on for Democratic lawmakers. And I'm curious, was that the case in the past, though? Did they need some sort of like, all right, there, child, get over yourself and vote for this. You need to complain on the floor, complain on the floor.
There's always complaints about the budget, and this is why. We go through the kabuki exercise of the one house. Hey, let me put 200 new things in the one house. You get a car, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car.
And they're electric cars.
And they want to be bought like tomorrow. So then after you do the one house and there's discussions, there is a framework for the budget. Like whatever the governor's executive budget is, the most I've ever seen governors go beyond that, like in terms of budget and money, 5% maybe more, 10% maybe more. They're not like, okay, let's put an extra billion on this budget and let's like, they're not doing that. It's contained to like, this is the box.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can maybe open, like the box can go beyond this, like this much. And that's for any governor. If it's something that's monetary, I understand the frustration because you get one bite at the apple to make sure that it's included in the budget. But if it's not monetary, what are we all screaming for? You're a legislative body. Like you can pass bills outside of the budget.
Right.
Senator Skoufis has always been an outspoken member. Am I surprised he lost his shit? Absolutely not. Sometimes people use this as like a game. Like, let's embarrass X and cause a scene, because then people will run to me and be like, "Oh, how can I serve you?" Or, "Oh, how can we fix this relationship?" Or, "Oh, X, Y, and Z." Ruben Diaz Sr. was excellent at this. He'd get up, he'd scream, he'd say all these things, and then people would be calling like, "What's wrong? What happened?" Da, 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 da. There were other members that would do the same thing. I always caution people that if you do it one too many times, people become immune to it.
Yeah, the boy who cried wolf.
Well, I don't want to say boy. These are like people and women. They're adults.
The lawmaker who cried wolf.
It's a fine line. I think Senator Skoufis was aggrieved. Not aggrieved, but he felt aggrieved. I don't know if other people, whether it's the executive or other people, felt that they aggrieved him. But I think he felt he had some requests, and they're reasonable. Why are they not in the budget? But every senator thinks their requests are like reasonable. They'll be like, "Why can't we do healthcare for all? It's 160 billion. Like, why can't we do vouchers for New York City? It's only like a reoccurring cost."
Hey, we got the vouchers this year. At least 1/5 the cost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to see now, next year when it's budget time, they're going to be like, "Can we get more money?" I want to be clear.
Please,
I think please, sir. It's not my vibe to make threats unless you can execute. One thing about me, when I say threats, I mean like when I voice my displeasure and I say what's going to happen next. You have to be able to execute. So if you get up and scream about the executive, you have to be okay when the executive is in your district and they don't invite you.
I don't think he's necessarily clamoring for an invite to be shown around Orange County by the governor.
You'd be surprised. People pop shit on the Senate floor and the Assembly floor and then get highly offended when other people are in their districts doing announcements or doing something positive. I've lived it. People will be like, "I hate this person," like West Side, blah, 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 shoot him up. And then the executive...
Who talks like that in the legislature?
Me and Eric Katz, we used to play the song "Shoot 'Em Up" by Tupac. Mm-hmm. Whenever we have to fight people. But that's like how the members were. They'll be like, "When I see this person, I'm going to say this. Blah, 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 blah." And then they see that person, or that person's in their district doing unveiling some huge thing. And then they're like, "Why weren't I invited?"
Well, yeah.
And then the executive's like, "You played yourself." No.
Well, let's follow up on that idea of threats and executing on them, because as part of his floor speech, the senator talked about how he's going to have hearings and use his oversight power, and he's going to push to reform the budget process. And I couldn't help but sort of stifle a laugh as to the prospects of that sort of stuff happening or happening at a meaningful level. Putting aside what he might do with his own committee,
Right.
the idea that the budget process is going to change is laughable, right?
I tell as old as time. Like, I think this governor feels that the budget is her thing, and that's how she wields her power during the budget process. So that's her thing. She knows during session, I probably won't get what I want unless I put it through the budget. Okay. If anyone thinks they're going to change the way this budget process, I got something to tell you. It's just not going to it's not going to happen. And that's why I say, if you make a threat, make sure both leaders are on the same page as you. Will help you execute. But I think, will he terrorize her commissioners and stuff like that? Absolutely, because they go through, some of them go through his committee. So I think that might happen. But I don't know if the leader and the speaker are clamoring to
No,
change
they're not. They said they are not interested in this basically at this point.
And the process in order to be changed, I think, has to be a constitutional amendment anyways. And there's been numerous lawsuits, Silver v. Pataki, and all blah, 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 that happened that they basically said the case law has established the governor is the person that determines the budget.
Unless they want to wage total war, in which case they can have power.
And nobody ever does. No one ever does. Because then guess what? The bills that you're screaming about that you'll probably pass during the legislative session will get vetoed.
So let's talk about the budget, and specifically something that really doesn't matter to most people, but it caught my attention as I was going through text and tried to make heads or tails of the fact that the Cannabis Control Board chair salary was zeroed out. And I was reading this going, was there some sort of error before? Was there a reason why?
That's the way of saying bye-bye, Tremaine.
Right? And is that because they don't have other power, you think, to axe her? They can't just say, here's the door. They have to incentivize her to leave?
Well, we're really going to talk about OCM. So there's the board chair, and then there's the executive director.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, Governor Hochul, rightly or wrongly, said the reason why OCM is such a shit show is because of this person and kicking them out. I mean, she didn't say it, but she basically said it. I'm kicking them out, and we're going to have things are going to be better. OCM is going to be better. Yeah. They got rid of them. I think they have an interim person. My understanding is that there's a lot of bad feelings in the legislature about what she did to a man who was, rightly or wrongly, he knew the policy. He knew a lot about cannabis. He was trusted by the members, or at least the members that were invested in cannabis. So I think they felt salty and sour about the way it happened. Tremaine is a former member of the Assembly. Chris was a former member of the Senate.
Staff.
He was staff. So you fire him, but there was private uproar where I think you can't just go embarrass a black woman that used to be an assemblywoman and think it's going to be cupcakes and lollipops. She would be in a political dynamic. So she's like, all right, fine. You want the seat? You could be the chair. I just ain't paying you. Go get a real job. Is it smart? It's creative. If this was my full-time job, I think, what's the salary?
$260,000.
That's more than members are making.
Mm-hmm.
That's more, I don't know. It's I think it's even more than some commissioners or
Mm-hmm.
So if I was making $260 and one day they said, poop, goodbye, but you can serve on the board. You know where I would be.
Well, if I was her, I would say, this is only a part-time job. I'll go find another job, and I'll stay on this role and just stick it to you every single time I can.
I think OCM is very complicated. I think it hasn't been given the care and the attention. For a while, we let the lobbyists and the advocacy groups run wild and be like, Chris Alexander, this, that. Okay, well, Chris is gone. Why is it still shitty? Why are the RO people mad? Why are all these other
Well,
groups
they're mad because of what the governor put into the budget dealing with their fees to enter the recreational market.
But it was always going to be high like that. It was always going to be high.
Yeah, but they've argued that the state has gone too far, and basically that the state's going to get blood from a stone, essentially. You can't get anything if there's nothing there. And so that'll be interesting to see.
How much you want to bet some rich people find a way to make it happen?
Oh, I think a couple of the players will definitely shell out,
Yeah.
but I think you're going to see a shrinking of the medical marijuana companies in this space, and they'll shrink their medical marijuana footprint. And maybe that doesn't matter, but there are
I
still...
don't think it matters. Maybe you could explain to me, why am I getting medical marijuana? I can just get the real, like, what am I
Well, you
getting?
can't if you're under 21.
It's a small population.
Right now, there's
like,
96,000 medical marijuana consumers. And sure, probably the vast majority of them could self-medicate through the recreational markets. But I think there is something to be said about a tailored approach through medical marijuana, in particular for those people who are under the age of 21. So I think it plays a role and probably should play a role, but it never took off. And at this point, it's never going to take off.
I hate to say this, I don't think people really cared about the medical.
Oh, yeah. I don't think this was like an
They wanted
altruistic thing.
access- Yeah, I think they wanted access to.
It was a loss leader. It was, I'm going to pay and, take one on the chin for some years, but then you let me into the space.
Exactly. I mean, the chair, Miss Wright, I think there were some occasions where I think she kind of went rogue and it ruffled some feathers and she did some things and there was always chaos and like it was always being like Tremaine being like it's Chris and Chris being like it's Tremaine. Well, now Chris is gone. It's still chaotic. So
Look in the mirror time. One other thing that was in the budget is basically the powers that the governor can exercise moving forward to make mid-year cuts to spending if there's changes to tax revenues or federal support. There is a provision that allows the legislature to basically weigh in if they come back and do their input within 10 days. I think it's laughable, this idea that if the governor makes cuts, that the legislature would decide to try to chime in and take responsibility for cuts. I think they would stay away from this with like a 10-foot pole, if not a
they
longer
will
one.
absolutely stay away from it and then they'll be like, it wasn't me, it was the governor when it's time to cut.
Okay.
They did this during COVID with Cuomo, where it was like, we have the ability to cut.
And they said, no, thank you. We will not be using that power.
Nobody was, and then like, because when they do the DRP, it'll probably be, if they were to do it, it'd probably be fall or close winter. And then, like in a couple months, they have a primary. So like, you think anybody's going to touch that? You
I'm
think
down with
anybody's
DRP.
Yeah, you know me.
Thank you.
So how do you feel? Budget's done. You have 6 more weeks of session. Like, how do you feel?
I feel anticlimactic about the end of the budget. I purchased 10 Chipwiches to begin to eat out and dole out when the budget passed and in some sort of great ceremony. Never, I was going to be the sugar daddy of the LCA. And I just never felt motivated enough to even crack into them. They're still in the upstairs freezer, just staying cool and not being eaten. So that's kind of my mood.
Well, conventional wisdom says that when budget ends with a whimper, end of session will end with a bang. So maybe there'll be some good bills, or maybe there'll be massive bills, or maybe they'll just pass a whole bunch of bills and they'll just like be cranking it.
Well, that's a great transition, Shontell, because we're speaking on May 15th. Excellent, excellent. The session was scheduled to end on June 12th, and it now appears that the session's going to go into overtime.
The assembly session will go into overtime.
Do you think the Senate gets all their work done on time?
One thing I know about Madame Leader is that date. Let me show you. She always says this in confidence. She'll be like, "This date right here, this day on this calendar, I am going home." So either it's 6 a.m. that day, or like she is like when she wakes up on the 12th, whatever don't get done when she's ready to go ain't getting done. Bye. Too bad. So sad.
The trajectory, though, is that it's the assembly that needs the additional time, especially based on last year.
Yeah, that was the thing. I think there were some bills that didn't get done last year. So I think, the speaker, rightfully so, is putting some extra days. And good for him. But I know that Madame Leader is not putting any extra days. So I think this is going to be it's going to be crazy.
Do you think it's a mistake for the speaker to forecast this ahead of time? Because if you're a chamber that needs a deadline to get stuff done, and you've just said the deadline's extended 3 days, now doesn't that delay the impetus to get things done?
For me, in dealing with the two houses because of the assembly's like debate rules and stuff like that, I always try to get it passed in the assembly first. If I have like bills that I need to become law, like I'm like, let me get the assembly first. Because the assembly's process is just so much longer, the debate's longer, you never know what's gonna happen. For the Senate, it can go through rules and then go on the floor and like I don't think it's a mistake. I think he's leveling. I mean, like people have vacations. Like I have a vacation. I'm in London. I'm seeing Cowboy Carter in London. So, yeah. Do you know who Cowboy Carter? Do you know the Cowboy Carter tour? Do you know what that is?
Not only do I know about the Cowboy Carter tour, one
Good
of
for
the
you. This
LCA
girlfriend
show
is-
songs that I had rejected because we had something else to write was a parody of Texas Hold'em.
Okay, so you're saying this ain't, let's see, you're making fun of another state.
No, and I'll say this because I'm going to have a video out about this ASAP. It's a Andrea Stewart Cousins singing about the Senate chamber, and it's really a wonderful platform for Mary Frances Stout, who is the strongest singer in the LCA, and we taped it.
And the stout, black or white?
She is black.
Oh, wait, there's a black girl in the LCA?
Yes,
I
there are
didn't-
multiple, but
Really?
hmm
All I see is white men.
we do
Okay,
we do make up the vast majority.
You make up a vast majority. Like whenever
It's
I'm
like
walking
early Major League Baseball. We've got like Jackie Robinson, but most of the people look like Joe DiMaggio.
Well, okay. Well, I would love. Oh man, now I'm sad. When is the LCA show? I can't.
Well,
do
you'll
it.
see the video. You're not gonna come to the show?
No,
You got to come to the show.
I got multiple jobs, dude. I got bills I got to get
Yeah,
passed.
but you can be working there socializing. It's a work
There's
function.
only 2 days I'm allowed to play. May 28th when I go see Beyonce in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I get on my flight to go to Europe.
What are you doing May 21st? What's on the calendar? Do we need to get Joanna to schedule some time?
No, I am trying to get one of my bills passed.
You know what the best way to pass a bill is when the lawmakers are a little buzzed at the open bar at the LCA show and they're more susceptible.
While I love you, I'm not even gonna say it.
I wasn't
But,
sure. Is there another part to that?
Yeah, I just can't say like the LCA. Like it's like the what's the one in New York City too?
The Inner Circle show?
Yeah, it's just like I respect you all.
Do you, though? Do you really?
Y'all not like making me like belt out laugh. Y'all making me like hee hee.
That's fair.
But I want like, if I'm gonna go out, spend money, or leave my house
It's a work
when I
expense.
don't have to, and interact with people and activate my aura ring whenever I'm in Albany, whether it's interacting with legislators, staff, anything to do with legislature, my aura ring says there's a high level of stress because you all stress me out.
Tough but fair.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. You don't get anxious or stress dealing with people?
I have been at all-time high levels of anxiety for the last month, and I'll be very
The LCA
grateful when the
show?
show is over. Yes, it is all show related.
Guys, he wanted me to do an appearance, but I told him I politely declined.
You declined multiple times as I just kept pitching it to you.
And I was like, no, I'm not doing it. And you notice I try to give different excuses, but that last excuse was like the real excuse. Like, I'm not trying to joke around with people when I need some serious bills to get passed this year. I can't be fucking I gotta be late. I am so laser focused on the end of session. Just let my haters know. I am so laser focused on getting my bills accomplished. I cannot play with anybody right now.
You hear that, John Liu?
I'm like laser focused. Like that's all. And then when end of session happens, I want to do a podcast of my experience this year as a lobbyist and all the things that people do to other lobbyists when they're working on projects. I want to pull and let people know the real world of what this is like. Because, baby, and I'm saying this to my haters, you don't win. When you're nasty, you don't win when you play nasty. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, on that note, We've been speaking with Shontell Smith. She is the head of the New York practice for Tusk Strategies, where she is a partner. Shontell, thank you as always.
Thank you.
And before we move on to some bonus content, I want to mention that today's program is brought to you with support by New York State United Teachers. And now we're going to share some bonus content from a recent Capitol Press Room interview we did with former State Budget Director Bob Megna. Before I let you go, I want to ask about this dynamic that has emerged and taken root in terms of the way the budget is framed here in Albany. And you get the legislature, which basically says, oh, I have no power. I am a hostage to the whims of the executive. And I'm curious whether you think that is the right framing or whether that is framing that the legislature has basically foisted upon itself.
I don't know that they've foisted it upon themselves.
Are you impressed by my use of the word foist?
I am.
Thank you.
Here's what I would say. It is a strong executive budget process in New York, like it is in many states. Mm-hmm. States have constitutional requirements, not just New York, to balance their budgets on an annual basis. The governor is always going to be best positioned, I think, to have an overview that allows her to kind of set that tone. But the legislature has one incredible power that they exercise, and they're exercising it up until a week ago, which is they don't have to pass a budget.
Right.
And so that's a lot of power. The governor then, I think, has to go into negotiations with the legislature. And so I think it's exaggerated, the fact that they're powerless. They're not powerless. They can bring the governor to the table.
I mean, my understanding is they can amend an Article 7 bill and pass that policy bill. Maybe the governor vetoes it. Maybe they override it.
Well, they can't. See, that they probably would argue with you. They can't really amend the language that the governor has put in.
Can't they strike language out?
They can strike it.
And add something new.
They could try to add something new. The governor would argue, I think, and some of the court cases have been about this, that if they're doing substantively the same thing as what she was trying to do, then she has the right to knock that out too.
So I can't call it a...
Pataki did that a lot of times. That was kind of a lot of what Pataki v. Silver was about. But I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to get too far down that path. But no, I think they have to come back to the governor and say, we don't want to do it the way you're doing it. We're not going to pass a budget until you make some changes. Then she makes the changes with them, and then they pass the budget.
It seems like the interest in an on-time budget has really changed from 15 years ago when there was that conversation about an on-time budget reflecting competency and normalcy in Albany. Does it seem like it's a completely different focus now than it was 15, 16 years ago?
You know, I think and I'm the last person to talk about the politics, but I think the politics have changed. Because back then it still was a split legislature. Mm-hmm. And so I think when they didn't pass a budget on time, it was more about, the Republican Senate needed X and the Democratic Assembly needed Y, and the governor couldn't bring them together to get a deal. I think once back then they were able to say, well, despite our differences, we're going to get done by April 1st. I think that was like a conscious effort they made to kind of take the politics, at least the look of the politics, out of it.
Well, it seemed like they were concerned about being perceived as being dysfunctional.
Yes, I think there was a issue with that. And again, I think these things go in fits and starts. Mm. If you look at when they did that after the Patterson years when, because I was around when you weren't really passing a budget until October because the legislature was so fragmented. Remember, we also had the kind of war within the legislature. We had the
Senate
Democrats
coup, baby. Senate coup, baby. Now you're speaking my language.
It looked and it was dysfunctional. And so I think when it turned over, I think, the last governor certainly made it a priority that he was not going to get pigeonholed into this, we don't know what we're doing. But I don't think it's the same situation now. I think now it's more about the policy priorities of the governor and sorting those out with the legislature.
And lastly, for real this time, when we've spoken with Budget Director Blake Washington about his role in the process, I've asked him, are you just the numbers guy, the human calculator that the governor turns to, or does she actually ask you to weigh in on policy when that turns to that? And he said that, yeah, the governor looks to him for advice and seeks his counsel. Was that your experience with the Governor Cuomo or Governor Patterson? Did they ask you to weigh in on that, or they say, Bob, get out of the room, go get yourself another diet soda?
No, no, they would ask, and I'm sure it's the same for Blake. And this governor certainly, I think when I came back, wanted my opinion on stuff, didn't mean that's what she was going to do. And I think those prior governors were like that too. They wanted to know what you thought. It's like some of these things are so detailed that they need the staff to spend some time explaining and saying what they think works and doesn't work.
But even things that were outside of the numbers and cents, the policy stuff, they were like, Bob, what do you think? You're a man of the world.
On certain things, yes. On other things, it was much less likely, right? I think they don't care. I don't think, and they were right not to, I don't think this governor did either, care about my political view on something.
No.
But if it was about a policy issue, they would listen to what I said. Again, it doesn't mean they had any sense that they had to follow it. I think that's what senior staff around the governor does. They kind of, either the governor has very strong feelings on an issue and knows what she wants to do, and then she goes and does it, and staff, you're going to go carry this out for me. But there are other issues where both her and her predecessors want to hear what the staff think. And there is, I think, a good relationship among senior staff of, here's what I think, here's why I think it's important. I'm going to weigh in more on things that are fiscally related and not as much, I don't know that my view on, prison sentencing is worth that much to the governor, or would have been worth much to any of the governors that I worked for. But if it had an effect on how we were funding prisons, or there was an indirect effect on that, I think it was my responsibility to talk to him about it.
Recording stopped.
Let me tell you what these motherfuckers